You have massive goals, not small, comfortable goals. Huge, ambitious, world-changing goals. You want to build $1 million business, write a best-selling novel, create something revolutionary, achieve success that makes people look at you differently, and you genuinely believe you can do it. This isn't delusion. You have the intelligence, the creativity, the vision. You can see exactly how it could work, what steps would be required, what the end result would look like. The plan exists perfectly in your mind. But you're also incredibly lazy. Not lazy in the sense that you can't do anything. You can focus for 12 hours straight when something genuinely interests you. You can work with intensity that surprises people, but only when the task feels meaningful, novel, challenging in the right way. Everything else? The boring administrative work, the repetitive tasks, the necessary but unstimulating steps required to actually achieve those massive goals, you can't make yourself do them. You procrastinate endlessly. You find every possible distraction. You'd rather scroll through your phone for 3 hours than spend 30 minutes on something that feels tedious. People don't understand the contradiction. If you're really ambitious, you'd just do the work. Ambition without action is just daydreaming. You're not actually ambitious, you're just lazy with fantasies. But they're wrong. You are ambitious. Genuinely, intensely ambitious. And you are lazy. Genuinely, frustratingly lazy. These aren't contradictions. They're two sides of the same psychological profile. You're not broken. You're not a failure waiting to happen. You're a specific type of person with a specific type of brain that experiences motivation, effort, and achievement completely differently than the average person. Tonight, I'm going to show you the psychology behind being lazy but extremely ambitious, why these traits coexist, what's happening in your brain, and why understanding this paradox is the key to actually achieving those massive goals instead of just dreaming about them. Before we dive deep into applied psychology, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments where you're from. Alex Hartman was 29 years old when he finally understood why he'd spent a decade cycling through ambitious projects that never got finished. He had a drawer full of half-completed business plans, 3 chapters of 5 different novels, detailed designs for apps he'd never built, and comprehensive strategies for ventures he'd never launched. He wasn't lacking ideas, he wasn't lacking intelligence. He'd tested in the 98th percentile for IQ, had been labeled gifted as a child, and could conceptualize complex systems with remarkable clarity. His ambitions were genuine and massive. He wanted to build a tech company, publish books, create multiple income streams, achieve financial independence by 35. But he also couldn't make himself do his laundry for 3 weeks, couldn't respond to emails for days, couldn't complete the mundane administrative tasks required to turn ambitious ideas into actual functioning businesses. His therapist finally gave him language for what he was experiencing. You're a high-intelligence, low-activation person with massive discrepancy between intellectual capacity and executive function. What Alex discovered through therapy and research was that lazy but ambitious isn't a contradiction. It's a specific psychological profile that combines several distinct traits. First, high intelligence combined with need for novelty. Dr. Shane Frederick's work on cognitive reflection shows that highly intelligent people often struggle with tasks that don't engage their full cognitive capacity. Their brains are built for complex problem solving, pattern recognition, creative thinking. Routine tasks feel understimulating to the point of being physically uncomfortable. Alex could spend 6 hours designing a complex business model, completely absorbed, time disappearing. But 30 minutes of data entry or routine paperwork, torturous. His brain literally couldn't engage with it. The task was too simple to activate the cognitive systems that gave him satisfaction. This wasn't laziness. It was cognitive mismatch. His brain was a Ferrari being asked to idle in a parking lot. The engine was powerful, but only engaged with challenges worthy of that power. Second, high openness to experience combined with low conscientiousness. Dr. Jordan Peterson's research on the Big 5 personality traits shows that openness and conscientiousness are independent. You can be extremely high in one and extremely low in the other. High openness means creative, imaginative, interested in ideas and possibilities, oriented toward the future and what could be. This drives ambition. You see possibilities others miss. You imagine futures others can't conceive. Your mind constantly generates new ideas, new approaches, new visions. Low conscientiousness means poor organization, difficulty with routine and structure, weak follow-through on obligations, tendency to procrastinate. This creates the laziness. You struggle with the disciplined execution required to turn ideas into reality. Alex scored in the 95th percentile for openness and the 15th percentile for conscientiousness. Massive idea generation, minimal execution ability. His brain was constantly creating ambitious visions but lacked the temperamental traits needed to systematically work toward them. Third, high IQ combined with ADHD or ADHD-like traits. Dr. Russell Barkley's research shows that many highly intelligent people have ADHD that's masked by their cognitive abilities. They can compensate for executive dysfunction through pure intelligence, but the underlying difficulty with sustained effort, task initiation, and boring work remains. Alex had undiagnosed ADHD. His high intelligence had allowed him to succeed academically without developing discipline or organizational skills. He'd coasted on natural ability, doing minimal work, achieving good results anyway. But in adult life, where success requires sustained effort over years, his lack of executive function became a critical limitation. He could hyper-focus on interesting challenges for hours, but initiating work on boring, necessary tasks? Nearly impossible. His brain's reward system only activated for novel, complex, stimulating work. Routine tasks generated no dopamine, no motivation, no activation energy. Fourth, perfectionism combined with fear of mediocrity. Dr. Thomas Greenspan's work on perfectionism shows that highly ambitious people often struggle to start projects because they can't tolerate producing anything less than exceptional work. Alex would rather do nothing than do something mediocre. His ambitious visions were so clear, so perfect in his mind that the reality of actually executing them, with all the messy, imperfect, incremental progress that requires, felt intolerable. So he'd procrastinate, not because he didn't want success, but because he couldn't bear the gap between his perfect vision and the imperfect reality of getting there. Better to keep the perfect vision intact in imagination than to sully it with mediocre execution. Fifth, high intelligence creating analysis paralysis. Dr. Barry Schwartz's research on the paradox of choice shows that intelligent people often struggle with too many options. They can see multiple paths to any goal, can analyze each path's advantages and disadvantages, and become paralyzed trying to choose the optimal approach. Alex would spend weeks researching the perfect productivity system, the ideal business model, the optimal strategy, never actually starting because he was still optimizing the plan. His intelligence, instead of helping him succeed, created infinite decision points that prevented action. The breakthrough for Alex came when his therapist reframed his laziness not as a character flaw, but as a system design problem. Your brain is built for high-level strategic thinking, not for routine execution. Trying to force yourself to be disciplined and organized is fighting your neurological design. Instead, design systems that work with your actual brain. This meant outsourcing or automating everything routine. Alex hired a virtual assistant to handle administrative tasks, used automation tools for repetitive work, and structured his life to minimize boring necessary tasks. It meant breaking ambitious projects into phases where only the interesting parts required his direct involvement. Design the system, hire others to build it, create the strategy, delegate the implementation. It meant accepting that he would never be naturally disciplined and building external accountability instead. Deadlines imposed by others. Partners who depended on him. Public commitments that created social pressure. Most importantly, accepting his psychological profile instead of fighting it. He was lazy about routine work. That was never going to change. So instead of trying to become more disciplined, he designed his ambitions around work that engaged his actual interests and outsourced everything else. 2 years later, Alex had launched 3 businesses, not by becoming less lazy, but by structuring them so the boring parts were handled by people whose brains actually enjoyed routine work, while he focused only on the strategic, creative, high-level work that engaged his intelligence. His ambition hadn't decreased. His laziness hadn't disappeared, but he'd stopped trying to force himself into a neurological profile he didn't have and started working with his actual psychological architecture. Dr. Cal Newport's research on deep work shows that different brains have different optimal working styles. Some people thrive on routine, structure, consistent daily habits. Others, like Alex, thrive on intensity, novelty, complex challenges, with periods of apparent laziness in between. Neither is superior, they're just different systems. The tragedy is when lazy but ambitious people try to adopt the working style of disciplined but moderate people and fail repeatedly, interpreting their failure as personal inadequacy rather than system mismatch. You're not failing because you're lazy despite being ambitious. You're struggling because you're trying to work in ways that don't match your neurological design. Lazy but ambitious people need high stimulation work that engages their full intelligence, minimal routine work that bores their brain, external structure since internal discipline is weak, systems that leverage their strategic thinking while outsourcing their execution weaknesses. Stop trying to become disciplined. You won't. Your brain doesn't work that way. Instead, build ambitious projects that require minimal sustained routine effort from you personally, that engage your actual cognitive strengths, and that have external accountability to compensate for your internal lack of conscientiousness. Hire people who love what you hate. Automate what can be automated. Structure your ambitions around your strengths, not around becoming someone you're not. You're lazy about boring work. You're ambitious about interesting challenges. These traits coexist because they're both expressions of the same underlying psychological profile: high intelligence, high openness, low conscientiousness. Stop fighting it. Start designing around it. Your ambition is real. Your laziness is real. And success comes from leveraging one while accommodating the other, not from trying to eliminate traits that are fundamental to how your brain works. And that's the end of our experience. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It's very important for us to know the truth. Be honest in the comments, leaving creative suggestions so we can improve the quality of our content more and more. Comment where you're from, check out the video on the screen. I'm sure you'll like it. See you in a few seconds. We are Applied Psychology, and this is our contribution. Subscribe.